This is the voice of the New York Football Giants, Bob Papa, and you are listening to the best throughout Europe, the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast, proudly in association with Andy's Mag Club. Lads, remember, it is okay to talk, and in this month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so it is absolutely okay to talk, and I encourage it, wholeheartedly encourage it. Tonight we are 67% British, 33% Irish, but as always we are 100% Giants. The 2025 NFL Draft is in the books, and to take a look at our draft class of this year, I'm joined by Kev and producer Craig, and United have just gone 1-0 up. Get in. Just wanted to say quickly, before we started, to anybody that did tune into our live streams during both days 1 and 2, we appreciate each and every one of you. We had so many comments throughout the 2 live streams. I really appreciate all the love we got. And yes, by the end of day 2, we were absolutely knackered. So it was kind of nice to say, sort of just to take a back seat on day 3 and just relax and enjoy it to ourselves. Yeah, Kev, Craig, boys, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Yeah, it was a great sort of like weekend with the draft, but also like, you know, us doing it live. You know, was it 10 hours of live recordings we did, which was pretty decent, maybe a bit more. But yeah, really enjoyed the weekend. But also it's kind of weird hearing so many people praising what the Giants are doing. It feels, yeah, like I said, it just feels a little bit weird. I mean, we'll get into why, but yeah, it's a nice feeling for a change.
You're not wrong. It is kind of odd when you look at all of the kind of like draft gradings that happen around the league, and kind of, you know, you look and you always go, oh, okay, C, D, like, you know, whereabouts is it? And then you see like these teams won the draft, and you're like, but we're there. That's not. But then again, I don't want to go on to too much of a tangent. But when you look at what everyone said after last year's draft, it was all kind of like high C's, B's, that kind of area. And I actually think it's probably a comparable draft to what we've had this year in the terms of the quality that we've had out of it. So if we can go and take what happened with last year's draft and apply that to the 7 players that we've now picked up this year, we could be laughing. I mean, I don't want to say I'm on the hype train rather than the tank train, but I'm on the hype train rather than the tank train.
Oh, Shane will not be happy that you're on a different train. He will
Shout
not
out
be
to
happy.
Jasmeet as well.
Even Jasmeet, hope you're well, mate. And yes, we are all well, thank you very much. Yeah, it's kind of weird to read positive news about the Giants after the draft. So yeah, it's been quite good. Obviously, we'll deep dive into it a little bit this evening and next week as well. But yeah, it was a good 2 days, good 3 days overall, I suppose. But it was a good two evenings streaming with you boys, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was tiring, but at the same time, it was very, very, very enjoyable as well. Before we get cracking, if you're watching live on YouTube, X, Twitch, Facebook, whichever platform you're on, get involved in the comments, as plenty of people have been already. Send us your questions, give us your opinions on our draft picks. Let us know what you think. Give us a grade as well, because why not? We'll be giving an overall grade on this year's draft at the end, individually. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already to the channel, and feel free to leave us a review on your platform of choice. Over 200,000 people attended night 1 of the draft in Green Bay. 200,000 people. Obviously, the setting was overlooking Lambeau Field. It was beautifully sunny on the Thursday evening, and we didn't have to wait long for the Giants to be on the clock, as we obviously held the 3rd overall pick. And then just in the small matter of Cam Ward going to Tennessee, everyone knew that was going to happen. The Jags traded up to 2 to take Travis Hunter, which not many people saw coming. I know there was obviously plenty of talk that Cleveland were going to trade out of number 2. But yeah, the Jags moved up to number 2 to take Travis Hunter. And it was then time for Joe Shane to take centre stage. Not just Joe Shane, but the Giants' war room in total to take centre stage. And I think Shane was a happy boy. Don't we? I think Shane was a happy boy. A third overall pick, obviously the Giants selected edge rusher Abdul Carter. It was almost a no-brainer to pick up the third-year junior from Penn State. Widely regarded as probably the best, or one of the, or obviously one of the best, but probably the best overall player in this year's draft. It was almost like this doesn't happen to the Giants, that we pick up a player of this caliber. So it was very strange that it did, but at the same time it was like, hallelujah! Like there is light at the end of the tunnel after such an abhorrent season last year. But you know, Abdul Carter, I mean, he's been spoken about at length on this podcast and various other publications and podcasts and everything else. But we'll go into him a little bit. You know, he didn't participate in the combine, obviously due to that. They saw he had a stress fracture in his foot. But obviously in the Orange Bowl against Kev's Fighting Irish, he played through that game with an injured shoulder, and he absolutely shone in that game as well. Looking at him in terms of measurables and what he is, 6 foot, 250 pounds, transitioned from an off the ball linebacker to edge last year, and had his most productive season in his third year at Penn State. He was named as a unanimous All-American, Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, and led both Big Ten in sacks and the entire FBS in tackles for loss, with 12 sacks and 23.5 tackles for loss respectively. He was a 4-star recruit, was ranked 28th ranked linebacker in the 2022 recruiting class, and after receiving multiple offers from schools like Michigan, USC, Ole Miss, just to name a few, he decided on Penn State, as he was sold on the idea of being like a Micah Parsons-esque linebacker. And you know, he trained with Micah Parsons while he was making that transition to off-ball linebacker to edge as well. So it's kind of as a good helping hand for him. He's learnt from one of the best, and you know, his strengths have been there for all to see. You know, his body in itself. I know we're talking about athletes here. You know, he's a thoroughbred athlete. You know, the burst he has to reach top speed is ridiculously quick. He's explosive, both linear and laterally as well. Disrupts both tackles on the edge and blockers through the middle. He's got a variety of effective moves, spin moves, cut, you know, and is very, very shifty when it comes to actually controlling his body as well. He's really good at reading draw plays in the run game. He's phenomenal at defending against the run, and being that former off-ball linebacker, he's comfortable dropping into coverage as well, which is something we hoped we would get out of Tibbs and out of Brian Burns, and we've seen glimpses of that. But to have Carter come in and give that extra, you know, extra player in coverage, it could come in hand. It could really come in handy. He does have some weaknesses for a number 3 overall pick. They're obviously you expect to have a few weaknesses. He's slightly undersized for what most teams desire on the edge, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. He could quite easily sort of bulk up a little bit, put on a bit of weight throughout the off season. Some of his moves can be predictable, and he was flagged for a defensive offside 5 times last season, though not once throughout his last 8 games. So it's a sign of him in recognising those mistakes and rectifying them as well. And I think one of the, I don't know if it was a red flag, but one of the sort of big things there was that he was charged with a misdemeanor assault in March last year, but he accepted a pre-trial intervention program for first-time offenders, completed some community service and an anger management course. So kind of slate was wiped clean there. But you know, any time someone's charged with a criminal offence, whether it's serious or not, it does raise a few flags and raise a few eyebrows. But at the end of the day, we selected number 3 overall, and we've got an amazing player in Abdul Carter. The Athletic, courtesy of Dan Duggan and Charlotte Carroll, graded his selection as an A, which I think is a bit harsh considering he's probably the best player in the draft. And how would you not grade it as an A plus? And Art Stapleton of NorthJersey.com did grade it as an A plus. Now, Shane isn't here to fangirl over his boy. Kev, how impressive was Abdul Carter in the Orange Bowl against Shafari Irish?
Oh, mate, he was so impressive. I mean, he had 1 sack, 5 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 pass deflected. He's just a complete game wrecker, and for him to have such a good game. Like, we constantly had to run a ball the other way or move the pocket, like in passing, he had to come. Leonard had to come out of the pocket the opposite direction just to try and keep away from him, and that was him with a bum shoulder as well. So it was just absolutely just constantly in the backfield causing havoc. And like you said, he did start off as an off-ball linebacker. He started off the season a bit iffy. But as he grew into the season, those offside penalties reduced, and he just found his rhythm and got into it. He's an absolute beast, And one of the funny things, one of the tidbits I heard over the weekend was that Jackson Dart is actually a huge Star Wars fan. He wears the eye black for the scar, like Anakin Skywalker. And then obviously Abdul Carter has worn Darth Vader eye black as well. And this past weekend was the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. I just thought that was quite a cool little tidbit there. But yeah, he's an absolute beast. And to get arguably the best player in the draft at 3, sit and pick. Sometimes teams can mess that up. But I'm glad we stayed there and got him because he is an animal.
Yeah, the Giants received plenty of offers for them to move out of the 3rd overall, and you're not surprised when Abdul Carter still sat there. But I think it was a no-brainer, and I'm very, very, very glad they stuck and selected him. Obviously, Craig, he's joining an already pretty good defensive front, but how formidable do you think this defensive front can be moving forward with him, and what excites you the most about him as well?
I think when anybody gets compared to a player who has come into the league and basically dominated at the position to the point where he's a perennial Pro Bowler, all pro, like Micah Parsons, when you have a comparison to that, maybe it's a lazy comparison because it's Penn State, it's very easy to tie those two together. But if you actually look at the production that Parsons brings to the Cowboys and the aggression that he brings, which is something that I think Carter has that can't be understated, is the fact that he plays aggressively, which is kind of what you want from an edge rusher, is for them to, want to just decimate their opponent. I really like Kayvon Thibodeau, but I feel like Thibodeau sometimes can be a bit too smooth and not rough around the edges. And I feel that's what Carter's going to end up bringing to the table. But yeah, you look across this defensive front now and you look at a player we're going to talk about in 2 picks' time that we've picked up, but also Dex, you look at Burns, you look at Thibodeau, you look at what we were able to do last season with Azeez Ojulari. We've basically taken Azeez Ojulari and just upgraded him with a player who is the caliber of the starting 2, if not better than one of those 2 starting 2 that we already have. And don't forget, we also have Golston, who's gonna come in. And I think a lot of people have kind of forgotten about him because of the 2 selections that were made during the draft on that defensive front. We could have one of the best defensive fronts in football and then 2 of the best backups to that defensive front in football at the same time. I really, really don't think that can be understated. Our ranking as a defensive front is just going to skyrocket, and if it hits the ground running, I'm not really sure how you stop it.
Yeah, it's going to be quite difficult to stop it. Obviously, yeah, people do forget about Chauncey Golston, and he brings another dimension and he brings another piece of that puzzle. And I think with, like I said, our 3rd round pick as well that we're going to talk about in a minute, it just looks like a really sort of well balanced, well rounded defensive front that Dex is going to be the leader of, and just push Abdul Carter to be as good as he can, and Tibbs will do it as well. Brian Burns will do it as well, and the between the 3 of them, what better 3 players would you want to learn from as if you were Abdul Carter than those 3? Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau, 3 of I mean, Dex Lawrence, Brian Burns, two of the best defensive linemen over the last sort of 10 years in the NFL. Tibbs obviously still up and coming, still got bits to learn, but those three alone, just teaching him and showing him the ropes, as what more can you ask for? Really, it's going to be it's only going to be a good thing. So yeah, Abdul Carter, no brainer. I think we're all unbelievably happy with him and excited about what he can bring to this team, and I can't wait for the first weekend in September just to see him on the field. Jackson Dart then, Kev, over to you, mate.
Yeah, Jackson Dart, quarterback, Ole Miss. He's 22 now. He'll be 22 by the time the season starts. We met with him at the Senior Bowl. We've had extensive private workouts with him. Apparently, Dable's been peppering on the phone every single week up until a few weeks before the draft. He's 6'2", 223 pounds. Just go over his stats. I was looking at his stats, right? And the thing that impressed me from them was in the last 3 years at Ole Miss, 13 games played in each of the seasons. His record was 7-5, 11-2, 10-3. Completion percentage 62.4, 65.1, 69.3. Thrown for 3,000 yards, 3,300 yards, 4,300 yards. Touchdowns 20, interceptions 11, 23-5, 29-6. The stats kind of give you the thing where he's actually growing. You can see him growing as a quarterback. And just talk about his strengths and weaknesses. I mean, he's got a strong enough arm for deep passes in the NFL. Is it elite? No, but it's definitely strong enough to do what Dable would want him to do in this offense. He's got great mobility. He's got escapability. He can get out of situations. He's not Lamar Jackson by any means, but he definitely can, pick up the extra yards, and he can run as well. He can you can do power run with him. He's a playmaker. He kind of makes plays outside the pocket, inside the pocket. One of the things I noticed as well, which was really good, was he actually looks off safeties. So before he throws, he will look the safety one way and then throw it the other way, which is very, very, you don't see very often put it that way from quarterbacks coming out of the draft. He's got competitive toughness. He will layer that shoulder in, and he will try and, when I was watching the Gruden camp, fall for two. If you come into contact, try and get the 2 yards. He's good at reading defenses. He's good at passing under pressure, and he can make tight window throws. But then we come into the weaknesses. He needs to get a little bit more consistent. His decision making needs to get better. If anyone watched the end of that Florida game, we'll see some of the boneheaded decisions he made in that game and one or two others. But that could be worked on in the NFL. That could be coached. Do you know what I mean? There's mechanics as well, try and sort those feet out, when he's planting his feet, when he's driving through the ball. And for God's sake, just get out of bounds, slide, give yourself up. You don't have to play this hero ball. You don't have to go for fight for two. You can just sort of like once you get the first down, just, don't take the hits, get yourself out of bounds. And one thing I noticed well about a lot of people were knocking him for the Ole Miss offense, because, Lane Kiffin has a RPO type offense, very quarterback friendly. But I saw an interview over the last couple of days, and Kiffin actually introduced more of a West Coast NFL concepts into the playbook because Jackson Dart could handle them. He could handle those type of NFL sort of concepts. So he actually brought more in. So that's, that doesn't sort of bother me with saying that about Lane Kiffin's concepts, because I think he'll be able to adapt, especially sitting for a year. And just more about him. He started off at USC, but then when Lincoln Riley came in from Oklahoma, he brought in Caleb Williams with him, and he was always going to be the starter there. So he found himself on the outside. But from what I've been hearing, Dart has been Dable's guy since January. And they've done really well to keep it under wraps, because all we've heard is Sanders. But apparently Dable has been on him since January and delved into him when the season ended, when Dable actually got apparently the front office like Sanders, but Dable's all about him. Yeah, so lots of meetings, especially Zoom meetings with Dable. But also I watched back a lot longer clips of last year's Hard Knocks, and watching Dable with the QBs on the board, and watching then Jackson Dart with Gruden on the board as well. Like, I fully trust Dable to develop his QB. So if he wanted to get Jackson Dart, I back that 100%. I mean, I was high on him anyway, but knowing seeing that back reminded me, Dable knows what he's doing. He's a great offensive mind, and having him have a QB that he wanted and he can develop and given time to develop, he doesn't have to rush him in. I'm all for that. And just a couple of tidbits as well, like a couple of things I saw. I saw an interview where he said that in a pre-draft interview, he would, what teammate would you like to have that's currently in the NFL? And he could have listed off loads of names, and he actually listed off Jameis Winston as a quarterback sort of teammate he'd love to have, because he said his actual work ethic is phenomenal. And I think that people don't appreciate it with Jameis Winston. Like his work, he might be all jokes and everything like that, but he puts the work in. He's a fearless dual threat quarterback. He broke Eli Manning's Ole Miss all-time passing records. He needs to clean a few things up, like taking care of his body, reining things back a bit, be a little bit more reckless with some of the throws. But you would rather someone be overconfident and rein it back in than try to pull it out of them the way sort of like Dable was trying to do with Daniel Jones. That just didn't work, trying to pull those things out of him. I'd rather rein him back in. And last word of it is, Jackson Dart, the way I look at it, I think he's a baller. I think he has everything you want in an NFL quarterback: athleticism, arm talent, his toughness, his accuracy, and he's a great leader. He really is a good leader. When you hear people talk about the way he leads, it is absolutely phenomenal. And I think it's a really good situation for him to sort of sit for a year and learn. And I think he can develop into a quarterback of the future. And look at the grades. Giants Wire gave the pick an A. SNY Sportsnet New York, they gave it a B. I've seen some worse grades than that. I've seen some better grades than that as well. But talking about the situation, Dan, with Russell Wilson penciled in as the starter and Jameis Winston as the backup, how much do you think we'll see of Jackson Dart, if any at all, in this coming season?
It's a question I don't think many, if any, people know the answer to, really. Probably not even those inside the team. Obviously, he's that developmental project that we all expect him to sit behind Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. He's got some great qualities and great attributes, but he's got some areas he needs to develop his game in. It's going to take, I think, an absolute stinker of a season from both Wilson and Winston for us to see him on the field under centre, barring a game where it's in the fourth quarter and it's either a blowout win for us or it's a blowout win for the other team, and we just bring him in to get some reps with on the field. But I think I'd be very surprised if we see him playing any meaningful football this season. I think if he does, then something's gone seriously wrong and we're in a really dire place. And I don't see that happening with Wilson and Winston as QB1 and QB2.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think it is set up to be the perfect situation in the sense that there's no confusion. Dable came out and said that Wilson's the starter, Winston will be the backup. He can just sit with his clipboard, watch, learn how to be a pro, and not have to do it on the fly, under pressure, under fire. So yeah, I think best case scenario is you don't see a snap of him unless we are up by 30 points. Sorry, I couldn't say that without chuckling. But Craig, we say, you said on the graphic there, round 1, pick 25. But let's talk about the trade up. To get to that pick 25 and select what we hope is the QB of the future, we gave up 34 in the second round, 99th pick, which is a third round comp pick, which is very late, might as well be a fourth, and a third round in 2026. With Dart the preferred QB after Cam Ward, obviously, does it look? It looks like this was executed beautifully to be able to position ourselves to go and get the QB. Was this Trader Joe at his finest on the night?
Yeah, I think so. When you kind of look up what was given up by the Falcons 1 pick later to trade up for an edge rusher, which is not what you would call a king's ransom kind of player. When you're trying to grade a trade in the draft, please, Jesus Christ. You have to look at the player that you're going up to get. When you're going to go up and get a quarterback, you expect to pay a little premium. You have to sweeten that deal a little bit, because you're going up to get a player that you're willing to take a swing on. And if that swing turns into a home run, the other team knows that can happen. Whereas if you're trading up to get an edge rusher who, let's be honest, is one of the higher paid positions in the league, but it's not as high as your wide receiver one, your cornerback one, or your quarterback, and you're paying up what the Falcons gave up, and then you compare it to what we gave up to the Texans to do it, like, it's a no-brainer. But we've spoken about it before. Joe Shane has a knack for doing trades, and he seems like a very well-liked, respected person across the league. Like, if you look at the way that he conducts himself around other GMs, obviously you've got Dan Morgan in Carolina, who's one of his best friends. It just feels like he would be a really easy person to have a conversation with, and he's not going to try and play any like shitty games, or he's not going to try and like do you over to kind of help himself. It feels like Joe Shane is quite a reciprocal kind of person, and I think that probably helps when you're speaking to other teams and you're wanting a little bit back from them, sort of thing. So I think he did brilliantly. I mean, a 34, we kept our top, first pick of the third round pick, which I think was imperative to do. You give away 99, and a 2026 third rounder, you don't kind of care, because everyone was harping on about how deep this class is, and obviously we're going to get into it when we speak about some of the other players that we picked up. But yeah, to be able to keep that, obviously you always lose 34 because you're moving up. That's the point, you're moving 34 to 25. But the other two are just, you take it, you really do. It almost feels like the kind of trade that someone makes not for a quarterback, and you'd probably still be happy with it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everyone's saying that, it's such an even trade, which is crazy considering you're going up for a quarterback. And also, it's not even that you're going up for a quarterback, it's the team that's moving up always pays a premium anyway, just because you're the one who wants to move. So you will pay a little bit extra to sweeten it. And for a quarterback, the quarterback tax is a real thing. But for us to get an actual even trade in this scenario, I think you're right. I think it's absolutely brilliant from Joe Shane.
I think we said like Jameson. We said it on the live stream, didn't we? Like, when I saw it, and there's the horrendously cringy "oh my god" moment, and Kev staring into the distance up in the top corner. But I read out the trade value, and I think you, Kev, went, "What?" Like, almost like I was lying, sort of thing, because it was just that mental.
And like he must have the cojones to sort of wait. Right now we pull the trigger, and like I said, it just worked out like perfectly for us.
Yeah, there'll be a sweetener to that deal somewhere though. Whether it's a repay a favour next year or something, I don't know, but there'll be a sweetener to that deal somewhere. And like the comment you had on screen about what James said, when you consider what the Falcons gave up to move up to 26, they gave up a first round pick next year. I mean, it's Joe Shane. Hats off to you, my man, because that was a cracking deal, absolutely cracking deal. All right, should we move on? Darius Alexander. Darius Alexander. There we go.
Yes. Yep. The third rounder, pick 65, defensive tackle out of Toledo. And for those who watch the draft prospect episodes, Shane's fifth ranked defensive tackle. So shout out to Shane for having another one of his top 5 selected here. Darius was a full participant at the combine with both his measurables and on-field drills. 6 foot 3.7, because the points make all that difference when it comes to the underwear Olympics. 305 pounds, 10-inch hands, 34-inch arms, a wingspan of 82 inches and 7/8. He ran his 40 in 4.95 seconds, 31.5-inch vertical, 9'3" broad jump, and put up 28 reps on the bench press. His shuttle time and his 3-cone were both kind of up there on kind of the higher end of the scale as well when compared to other defensive tackles. He first signed for the Rockets in 2020 and was a rotational player in 21 and 22 before breaking in as a starter in 2023, carrying that throughout the 2024 season. In 2024, he would be on the field for 630 snaps, recording 37 total pressures, which, when you break them down, are 25 hurries, 8 quarterback hits, and 4 sacks. He also had 34 total tackles with 6 missed, 3 batted passes, 1 interception, and 27 stops. Across his collegiate career, he played just over 2,000 snaps, with the majority as a defensive tackle on the line. However, he did have 113 snaps outside the tackle and had 72 as a nose tackle. So it does show that he has a little bit of versatility, although it hasn't been used maybe as much as he was used as just a pure DT. During his 5 years, he had 101 total pressures. So that's 69 hurries, 19 quarterback hits, and 13 sacks. He also had 115 total tackles, 18 missed, 11 batted passes, and 83 stops. So I had a look at Dane Brugler as the beast for the strengths and weaknesses. He says on the strengths, he already owns an NFL-ready frame, long arms, big hands. He has outstanding body control for a player of his size to slip through the gaps. He also highlighted that he sniffs out screens and plays alert as a drop player, and that he dominated against stiffer competition during Senior Bowl practices. And I think Darius Alexander was one of those players who really saw his draft stock rise after the Senior Bowl, and it just proves just how important things like the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl really are for some of these prospects who maybe either play at the non-premier schools but still being at a bigger school, or maybe play against lesser competition, and it's a showcase for them to show that they can hang with the big boys. And I think that's what a lot of NFL teams kind of tick off their sheet whenever they see them. Now, weaknesses: he needs to develop instincts to feel blocking pressure and anticipate schemes. His pass rush plan often lacks cohesiveness, and he's a little bit lower on statistical output from a pass rushing sense when you look at his size and how many snaps he's had. And he's an older rookie at 25. Probably one of the older rookies we've picked up. He's probably older than 90% of last year's rookie class and probably the rookie class before. So he is definitely on the older side, but sometimes, experience pays off when it comes to it. I thought there were 2 things that were interesting to note when you look at Darius Alexander as a player, but also the comparison that people make. And then also you look at his press conferences that he's had with the beat writers so far. Brugler's player comp for Darius was an ex-Giant, and arguably somebody that the Giants have missed since he disappeared in October 2023. And that is Big Cat Leonard Williams. And I think he's right. Since Leonard Williams disappeared, our run defense has just gone down the toilet, really. So to have somebody who's kind of come in and that's his comparison, I'm quite happy with that. But he also has a friend on the team, because inside linebacker Deontay Johnson, who got Shane 133 tackles last year, they actually played together at Toledo. So at least he's got someone in the building. He was able to kind of phone up and kind of get a feel for what New York's like. The Athletic gave the pick an A grade, as did Art Stapleton of NorthJersey.com. So obviously one that was very popular. And I think a lot of people had Darius Alexander going a lot earlier than he actually did to us. And I know we were kind of very hopeful on that live stream of could he actually fall down to us? Now, Kev, with the comparison of Leonard Williams, obviously Leonard Williams' best friend was Dexter Lawrence. That's just how they got on together. Do we finally have somebody next to Dex that can not only complement him, but with his previous, albeit limited experience as a nose tackle, maybe someone who can come in so Dex can have a breather every so often?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a great pick. When I was making notes about, we're going to talk about the draft, the drafted players tonight, the first line I wrote for Alexander was think Leo Williams was the first thing I put down. I mean, like he's well known for his pass rushing, three technique capabilities. Like we talked about that, but you know, he's more than a pass rusher. Like his potential as a run defender is just as high. I mean, PFF had him as 90.1 overall grade last year, which is third. 90.3 run defense grade, which was third. You know, he's definitely got all that potential as well. Like, and he's just such a good compliment, but he also can give good snaps. I mean, like you said, he's 25. He's mature. He's a mature man. He has a 6-year-old son. Do you know what I mean? Like he's from Fort Wayne, Indiana. He went to Toledo, which is an hour and a half away drive. You know, yes, it's lower competition. Higher colleges tried to recruit him, but he stayed true to his commitment and wanted to stay close to his family and stuff. You know, so it shows a bit of maturity there. Because like some players just hop onto the next big offer and stuff. But like even you talk about the level of competition, you hit the nail on the head with the Senior Bowl. In the Senior Bowl, he excelled. And these players coming from this level of competition, that's what you have to do. And he showed it in the three technique. He showed it on the nose. He showed it in the one. I mean, I loved his quote when we drafted him. What was it like? He said, "I love taking my opponent's will and just watching them go to the sideline and not know what to say to their coach." I mean, I can get on board with that. I mean, and I'll say it now, and this will be clipped or whatever, but I think playing next to Dexter Lawrence next year, who just constantly get double teamed, he can take advantage of one-on-ones, and I think he has a chance to be in the running for Defensive Rookie Player of the Year.
Oh, bold prediction starting very, very early here.
Is that a bold prediction there, Kev?
It certainly is, my friend, yes.
The thing is, though, and this is something we've spoken about before, is that some players have a better production in the pro than they do at the college level. And then obviously there are players that do the opposite, where their production is sky high in college, and then they get to the pros and they just can't seem to get that same level of competition, that same drive out of themselves. But you never know. Dan, if there's one player that potentially this spells the end for, I think it's probably Nacho. And then you kind of look at the cap situation and the sort of free cap we can free up by releasing him, where we've already made a couple of signings in free agency at the defensive tackle spot as well. Do you think that maybe this is the last we've seen of Nunez Roches?
In all honesty, I think it is. You look at his contract for next year; he's due just over $5 million in 2025. I think it looked at over the cap earlier. Either pre or post June 1st, cutting him will save us $3.6 million with 1.4 million dead cap, which isn't the be all and end all. It's not a huge amount of money to lose, but freeing up 3.6 million in our salary cap is, I think, worth it. He's been an okay fill-in when he's been on the field. He's not shone. He's not really had any sort of standout performance of note that we can remember. He's made a slight impact, and so we look at the rest of the D line as well. You've got obviously Darius Alexander. You've got Elijah Chapman, who came in last year and impressed. Jordan Riley even as well. Obviously last year came in as a rookie. They're all three of them on rookie contracts. So realistically, it's hard to see Nacho sticking around for $5 million really, because $5 million is a lot more than what we're going to be paying those three rookies combined.
Yeah, and then you look at, is it Roy Robertson Harris is also there, and Ledbetter, who they both came in, and we were quite high on Ledbetter coming in to start next to the decks anyway. So I think Nacho's just kind of slowly just dropping, and like you said, with the cap that's there, it kind of makes sense. But there we go. It's on to you again, Dan, for the next one.
Oh, Scatterboo! Yeah, first selection of day 3 in round 4, pick 105. Shane and Dave's opted to select Cam Scatterboo. Scatterboo.
Boo.
Boo, isn't it? Yeah, boo.
Boo.
Boo. Cat scatterboo. Does that mean whenever he's on the field, he gets a touch of the ball, they're just going to boo?
Yeah, I imagine it'll be like Fryermuth, where he just gets the move sort of thing.
They're just
Yeah,
going to go boo.
or a throwback for those old enough who will remember Mark Poom for Derby County back in the day.
Marpoom. Fucking hell. Wow, that's rolling back the years, isn't it? Yeah, Cam Scatterboo from Arizona State. Who's got the jersey on pre-order already? Because they're going to be flying, aren't they? They're going to be flying out, I think, those jerseys, aren't they? Measuring in at 5'10", 216 pounds, 9 3/8 inch hands, 29 3/8 inch arms, 74 1/4 inch wingspan. He was restricted in drills in the combine due to a hamstring injury, but during his pro day, he completed some more of them. Vertical and broad jumps at the combine, he scored 39.5 inches in vertical, 10'3" in the broad jump. And then at his pro day, logged a 4.65 second 40-yard dash time and 17 reps in the bench press. He started off his college journey at Sacramento State in the FCS. He considered playing baseball in college because his recruitment wasn't going as well as he thought it would. He played both pitcher and catcher in high school. And so he considered playing baseball in college as well. 3 seasons in Sacramento State, he then entered into the transfer portal with hopes of moving up to the FBS. Had a couple of offers on the table, but Arizona State came in, and as soon as they did, he pretty much committed to them instantly. His senior year, so last year, he logged 293 carries for 1,711 yards at 5.84 yards per carry, with 21 touchdowns, along with 45 catches for 605 yards and 3 touchdowns at just over 13 yards per catch. He was named first team All-American, first team All-Big 12, and led the Big 12 in rushing, having missed 1 game as well. And he finished second in the entire FBS in rushing yards, only behind Ashton Genty. And we picked him up in round 4, ladies and gentlemen. That's just criminal. I think it's criminal that he dropped that far. He led the Sun Devils to the 2024 Big 12 Championship and a spot in the college football playoffs. Finished 5th in Heisman Trophy voting, and he set Arizona State's single season records for rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, and total touchdowns in 2024. His strengths are that he is short, he's stocky, he runs with great balance, drives his legs on contact to gain that forward momentum, gain the extra yardage. He runs with vision in urgency downhill to try and find the crease. He's agile. His footwork, he uses his footwork to cut and to weave his way out of trouble. But he does have some weaknesses. He takes a little while to get going because of his short stature. It means his stride is a little bit shorter. And he has sort of average burst off the line. He shows courage as a runner, but this leads him to taking a lot of extra hits. And extra hits will lead to both injury and potentially ball security concerns. And I know there's been some people that have compared him, in terms of looking at ex-Giants, compared him to Ahmad Bradshaw. And those that remember Ahmad Bradshaw as a Giant know that he was just... he was, again, short in stature, but built like a brick shithouse. And he would just run. He'd drive his legs and run, and drive his legs and run. And, just takes you back to Super Bowl 46, where he tried to stop himself on the goal line to going over, and he then falls over backwards into the end zone because he can't stop himself because there's that much power in his legs. He's been likened to Ahmad Bradshaw, so to have a runner of his caliber come to us in the 4th round is fantastic. And looking at Tyrone Tracy, obviously playing alongside him, obviously with Devin Singletary as well in the backfield, there could be a nice little 1-2-3 punch there, kind of like we had with Jacobs, Bradshaw, and the third one, the name escapes me. Kev, you might remember. It's kind of like Earth, Wind and Fire. We had at the time. So one of the viewers might remember the name for the third one. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it could be Earth, Wind and Fire Part 2. Who knows? But yeah, I think looking at him and looking at his tape, he looks like a great runner. He was running back 3 and number 51 overall player on the PFF big board. So to pick him up with pick 105, like I said, was a bit of a steal. CBS and Bleacher Report graded his pick with an A, whereas I saw USA Today graded it as a C plus, and I'm like, what are USA Today watching? Anything but the news and anything but his tape? I don't know, but yeah, Cam Scatterboo. We'll get more into him next week. We're going to go into our day 3 picks in more detail next week, but Scatterboo looks like a real steal of a pickup with the 4th round pick there.
Yeah, and with the 5th round pick, couldn't believe it. Who was sitting there? Just like Marcus Embo, but the M is silent, so it's actually pronounced Argus Embo, and he's 22. He came in for a 30 visit. And it was said as well that if he was there for this Cam Scatterboo pick, that he would have gone there. They were tossing and turning between the 2 picks, and to be able to go with Scatterboo and then wait and get Marcus Bow, it's like phenomenal. Again, his arm length is 33 inches. Don't tell Mayo, please. Last year, in 2024, he allowed 3 sacks, 22 pressures. So strengths and weaknesses, he plays with physicality. He's very physical, although he does lack the functional strength you want for the position. Great athleticism, great agility, very, very good footwork. Technique, phenomenal. His hand placement is good. His body positioning is good. His durability, apart from, he had a leg break in 23, but that's the only real injury of note. High football IQ. He's great in space, an absolute awesome puller if you get him on the move. He does need to get a little bit more consistent. And like I say, he does need to bulk up and get that functional strength up a bit to be able to play in the National Football League. And he does need to improve his anchor against power rushers. But he appeared in 36 games with 32 starts. Between right guard in 2022 and then right tackle this past 2 years at Purdue. Coach Brian Dable said he's got position flexibility, but they'll start him off at tackle. And Bowie, he also says he believes he can play all 5 positions across the offensive line. He started learning center during the pre-draft process, just in case. And I fully believe if you put him there, he'd be an excellent center. But I would really like to see him start on the right tackle and see what we've got there. And again, pulling quotes. And I love to hear people talk like this. We pull out a quote this week saying, putting people on the ground, winning reps, demoralizing people, that's always fun. I'm here for this draft class, I'm telling you. And it was a Giants Wire gave this pick an A+, and SNY gave it a B. So very solid there from the guys.
Indeed. It does feel like players with a nasty streak was kind of like the order of the weekend. If you look at Carter's aggressive. You look at Dart said he likes to smash into people and get extra yards. You look at Alexander, he wants to demoralize people before they go off. You look at Scatterboo, he likes to run through contact. Now Bo, and I think you carry that on with Thomas Fedone. He looks like an absolute mauler. He is a ridiculously big man as well for a tight end. First of 2 7th rounders, pick 219, out of Nebraska, 6'5", 245 pounds. Probably got a big butt, Kev. 10 and 5/8 inch hands, 34.5-inch arms, 83-inch wingspan. Ran the 40 and 470, vert of 35.5. His broad was 10'6", which was the best out of all tight ends. Shuttle time was 4.29. 3 cone was 7.01. And then he put up 17 reps on the bench at his pro day. If you take all of his combine workout statistics, he is in the top 5 across the board. 40 time in all the positional drills and the cones and the shuttle, both jumps. He just across the board is a high level athlete. Now he signed with the Cornhuskers in 2021. And then in the spring practice, after 3 reps, he suffered a non-contact left ACL tear. So missed the whole season. He came back in 2022 and then tore the same ACL again and missed the entirety of his second year. So he didn't actually get to start a game till his third, but he didn't miss a single game across 2023 and 2024. So you kind of, it proves his toughness, but you kind of have to weigh up, like, is he injury prone or is he not injury prone? Like, he's now got 2 years, but are those 2 years enough? What about the ACL? In what condition is that? I'm sure a lot of teams did a lot of research. I know that it's kind of going back to Marcus Bowe, but a lot of people said they thought he was falling because of medical concerns. And Joe Shane kind of, poo-pooed that during his press conference, saying, look, the medical reports that we get are the same medical reports that everyone across the league gets. So if they would have seen something in Bowe's, they would have seen something in Fedoni's. So I think we're probably okay with that there. Again, if we look at the beast, they list his strengths as runs routes with acceleration of a big wide receiver. He is a tight end, Kev. He's not a big wide receiver. He's good at blocking, I promise. Releases cleanly, doesn't lose momentum.
I've seen, yeah. I've watched it.
He doesn't lose momentum in and out of breaks. He's persistent, persistently gives effort as a move blocker. Weaknesses, obviously, there's the 2 ACL tears. They're always going to count against him. He does have below average career production, and he doesn't sport ideal bulk or girth on his frame, apparently. The best thing about Fedoni is
why is girth even a consideration?
His girth. It's girth.
Why are we talking about girth on this podcast?
Fedoni has an interesting hobby. He's a tattoo artist. And not only is he a tattoo artist, he's tattooed himself, he's tattooed his dad, his teammates, and for anybody who was active on X just after he was drafted, there was a questionable phallic-looking dinosaur one that we are not showing on this podcast, but if you want to seek it out, then please feel free. CBS Sports' Chris Trapasso gave the pick a B+, and PFF, in their infinite wisdom of how they grade things, gave it a good. A good. But there was one other 7th rounder, wasn't there, Kev?
There was indeed. I mean, let's talk about Corey Black, Oklahoma State. Another player who came in for a 30 visit, so the Giants, really got to have a look at him. He's 22, be 23 when the season starts. He's 6 foot, 192, 4.35 40, and a 39 vert. That is explosive, right? Was it in 2023? He allowed a catch rate of 45.7, which is excellent. It was the 3rd best in college football last season. He had 4 pass breakups and 1 interception. And then this past season, he had a catch rate of 55.4, which is good, and 9 pass breakups, which was 2nd in the class to only Trey Amos, who was taken in the 2nd round. He only had 3 interceptions last year. Some of his strengths and weaknesses: he's got great size and athleticism. He's good in the back pedal. He can stick with receivers down the field. He's got the speed to do that. He can get lost at the break of the route. He does need to improve that. He's got good ball skills, the interceptions we just talked about. He's got good recovery speed. When he plants his foot and goes, he absolutely goes. The problem is he can get himself out of position sometimes, so he needs that recovery speed. He's an excellent special teamer, which is phenomenal, and you can see that with his tackling as well in play. Some of the weaknesses: he can lunge a little bit and get a bit grabby, give away a few penalties. That needs to clean up. That's something that I think can be cleaned up. He does give free releases a little bit too much. Again, a little bit technique thing. Get him in the building and start working on that. He's a little bit too patient sometimes. In the red zone, he kind of gave away the slant a little bit too easy for touchdowns. It doesn't matter so much down the field because he's got the recovery speed to make up for his patience. But in the red zone, you can't give up that much space to players in the red zone, as you know. But a lot of people had him as their sleeper for day 3. For a lot of the analysts and stuff like that. So, to get him here in the 7th round, I had a 5th on him. and he blocked a few field goals as well in college. So I think he's the type of player that can come in straight away, play on special teams, be one of the better gunners and blockers, and he's got the skills, I believe, to be a good backup cornerback in the league. I mean, Giants Wire gave it an A. SNY gave this one a B.
Nice. Yes, and both those pickups in round 7 were. I was quite happy with them, to be fair. I mean, we'll talk more about them next week, but I think they both look like they could be players that bring something to this team in 2025, and I'm excited to see what they do in like mini camps and during the preseason as well. I think they're good looking players. There's plenty of undrafted free agents that we picked up as usual. There's, I think, a list of about 20. I'm going to rattle through the list quickly. Michigan DB Makari Page, Virginia Tech wide receiver Daquan Felton, great name. Youngstown State offensive lineman Jason Williams. This one's new to me. Gardner-Webb University. Wide receiver Jordan Bly. Wisconsin DB RJ Delancey III. Nice. Louisiana wide receiver Dalen Cambray. Oklahoma edge Trace Ford. Oregon State titan Jermaine Terry. North Carolina wide receiver Nate McCullum. Ole Miss receiver Antoine Wells. Idaho safety Tommy McCormick. Findlay, again, that's another one that's new to me. Receiver Red Douglas. Elon Phoenix, great name of a college, that one. Running back Rashawn Baker. South Carolina cornerback O'Donnell Fortune. That's right, O'Donnell Fortune. And last but not least, Notre Dame wide receiver Bo Collins. Kev, Bo Collins, talk to us about him.
Yeah, Bo Collins. I like Bo Collins. He was 6'3", 190.
Shock.
You know, good size. Last year though, he only had 40 receptions, 400 yards. I think he was more. He had a few drops. He did a few drops. I think 4 or 5 drops last year, and in key situations as well, which you don't really see. I think that kind of dropped him. But I think he was more of a product of the Notre Dame offense. We were kind of more very much run heavy offense and didn't really suit wide receivers. But it definitely ticks a lot of boxes. And I had him sort of go in the 7th round as someone who could come in and be a back end roster. Now, he never played special teams, so you're not getting that out of him. That will go against him. But I'll be interested to see what he does in OTAs.
Nice. So he's not one of your picks for next week when we go through all the undrafted free agents. So we'll go more into the UDFAs next week. Rumored minicamp tryouts. Then we've got a list of them as well. Louisiana Tech, we've got 2 players from there. Wide receiver Jimmy Holiday and defensive back Isaiah McElvain. Coastal Carolina, that's a new one to me as well. Long snapper Blake Arnold. Well, our boy Casey's not going anywhere, so we're good. This one, the name of this school is fantastic. Case Western Reserve University. So not the primary university, the reserve one. Wide receiver Noah Coyne. Army offensive lineman Lucas Scott. Georgia Tech receiver Chase Lane. James Madison University. Trying to think where that might be. DB Terrence Spence. Texas A&M DB Jaden Hill. New Hampshire offensive lineman Dylan Poirier. That sounds kind of French. Pittsburgh offensive lineman Jason Collier Jr. And Craig, your boy, receiver Jarkey Douglas. Talk to us about Jarkey Douglas, Craig.
No. There's a reason he's a minicamp tryout player.
Love it.
So there we go.
Love it.
But it's an FSU player. Do you know what? I was thinking about this. There was me harping on about FSU players. Winston, Gano, Brian Burns. I can't be greedy, can I?
Hey, Jameis, your boy, come on.
You're doing all right, to be fair.
Exactly that, exactly. So yeah, we'll dive into them overall next week as well. But
there is
kind of receiver heavy, right?
There is one more. It was
is there one more?
It was a late edition that I had a look recently on there, and now I'm the one who's going to have to pronounce it as well, which is even worse. So you've got Northern
Drum roll.
Illinois offensive lineman Logan Znerchnik.
Wow.
Yeah. Zschernitz.
Hang on, I need to find this name. Johan
Logan.
Z.
Where Johan came
Johan
from.
Logan.
Wow, you're getting it straight wrong straight off the bat.
Yeah.
Straight away.
Zerchnitz. Zschernitz. That is a name.
That is impressive. Not the first clue how to pronounce that, so hats off to you, Craig, for doing that. Well done. If anybody has an idea about how to pronounce that, put it in phonetics in the comments for us and let us know so we can read it out online whilst we're still on this evening. But let's go to overall thoughts on the draft then before we round out. What are your overall thoughts about the 2025 draft class? And if you were to grade it, what would you go for, Kev?
Well, I love it. Like, obviously, I love it. I've got a few thoughts about this draft, right? And I'll just mention something about draft grades, like to begin with, and what they mean. People get so worked up about giving a grade, saying you can't give it a grade. You have to worry. You have to see it in 3 years. Blah 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 blah. Well, go and just take a long walk off a short pier, right? Because we love draft grades, all right? Because at the end of the day, you know what type of player you want. If you take a kicker in the first round, that's you're going to get that a bad grade. Okay, that's what I mean. Okay, just so let us have our grades. Let us have the crack, right? But one of the reasons why I love this draft class is not only did we get people like not by my rankings, but by everyone's rankings. You know, quarterback's a separate discussion, but everyone we got sort of like in a better spot than we should have had them. Like, you know, even a Carter at 3, he's arguably the best player in the draft. And if it wasn't for Cam Ward going 1, he would have been in that conversation for 1 overall. But one of the things I love about this draft class is these players. They all seem a little bit unhinged, right? And I love it. Like, do you know what I mean? You've got the first overall pick, the first round pick, Carter. Like, you have to have some cojones to ask LT for 56, like, and he's gone in there and asked 56, and he's a dog. You got Jackson Dart, who hunts wild cats and runs like a linebacker. He's a dog. You got Alexander, says he likes taking his opponent's will away. What a dog. Scatterboo runs into telephones as a kid. Dog, right? You got Bo. Have you seen his club edges? Have you seen the way he clubs edge rushers? Just bitch slaps them out of the way. Oh, dog, right? Then you got Fedone, like Craig said. The geezer tattoo stuff on himself and other people, like crazy dog. And then you've got Black, who's an absolute beast, special teamer on a gunner. And what is he? He's a dog. And I just love this draft class, getting so excited about it. And they all went later than we thought they'd go. And it's not very often we sit down and go, look who's still on the board. We're not going to take them. We took them. Do you know what I mean? Oh, I just like, you know, and I love the fact as well, like John Mara just let Brian Dable, let Joe Shane. They said, you're safe, your job's safe, you're coming back, and you just let them work. And they worked this weekend, in my opinion. And they've taken the mentality of win now, build for the future. And you can see it in this draft. You can really see it in this draft. Even someone like Bo, who I had as a starting guard, stroke tackle, I think he probably should sit for a year and he could be a right tackle next year. And I've been saying this for the longest time as well. The dream scenario for me was Carter or Hunter at 3 and trade back in the first round for Dart. And we did that. I mean, lads, you know, and the Giants did so much work. They've done extensive work on 8 quarterbacks, 5 in this draft and 3 that went back to school. In Allard at Penn State, Nussmeier at LSU, and Beck of Georgia, who went back to Miami. I just think that everything in this draft kind of worked for us. And I'm just so buzzing for it. And even the Cam Ward offer, right? We offered apparently the third overall pick this year, first next year, plus other things. Now, in hindsight, I probably would rather have Carter, Dart, my own first round pick next year and other things than Cam Ward, if I'm honestly. If you're talking about the 2 weighing the 2 up. If you said to me, "Have this or this," I'm kind of going for what we've got, to be honest. So I am just buzzing for this draft, lads. And I just think knocked it out of the park gets overused sometimes, but I really do think that we've knocked it out of the park. Put this draft class with last year's draft class, and you can and the savvy free agency signings. How can you not say we're moving in the right direction? Anyway, that's my rant over, boys. I just had to get that in there. Buzzing for it.
We are moving up the power rankings. NFL moved us up one place to 30th. So, get in. When you said about Fedone, I thought you were going to mention something else about him being a dog. And that is, if anyone's seen his suplex on Travis Hunter, which is also disgraceful because Travis Hunter doesn't even look like he's doing anything. And Fedone just grabs him and decides to suplex him in the middle of the field, which is dog mentality, I think. But no, you're right. I think there's a lot to be happy about with this draft class. And I think that it is really difficult to grade it. I mean, personally, I would give it an A minus. And I think that that's purely just because of the fact that you're looking at the draft value of Dart as a projection. That's the only one, though, isn't it? That's the only one that you could say kind of maybe not brings it down, but kind of puts it a bit more into perspective as to how it went. I don't think I've seen a single person say Jackson Dart was the 25th best overall player in the draft. And that's fair enough because to us, he was worth a lot more and we went up and got him and we didn't give away, as James rightly said earlier on in the show, a king's ransom for it. But I think one thing that's quite clear by what you were saying there, Kev, about, the mental aptitude, should we say, of all of these players, we are creating a culture. That's what this draft was about. It was about bringing in players that create a culture that will, what's the right word? Kind of, they will complement all the players that we already have that have that mentality. One of the things that Alexander said that he when he spoke to Deontay Johnson was, what are the players like? And he went, these guys will run through a brick wall. Like this team as a whole just want to go out there and attack. And that's exactly what we've picked up across this draft. Our players who are going to come in, a few of them with a chip on their shoulder. Don't get me wrong. Scatterboo, Bo, Fedone, Black, all of our day 3 picks were projected to go higher than the round that they were picked. And they'll remember that. Tyrone Tracy, the chip on the shoulder. Tyrone Tracy can still remember and name every single running back taken before him. And it would not surprise me if Scatterboo can do the exact same. So I think it's going to be a really interesting thing to look at. I think the mentality of the team will come out during OTAs, and that's obviously the next big thing after the schedule release. So we've only got a couple of months of kind of not dead air, but kind of dead air now. And then we're really going to start to see what these depth charts look like. And remember, every single pick that Joe Shane has made in that year is on the 53-man roster that year.
Yeah, I think there's just so much potential in this draft class. So much potential. And what you said about Jackson Dart, is he the 25th best player in this year's draft? Maybe not. But in 3 years' time, if he turns out to be an absolute stud and the future franchise quarterback for the New York Giants, we'll look back and say, picking him up at 25th overall and giving up what we gave up for him is an absolute steal. It's an absolute steal. And I think, you look across the board at all the players we selected. I said there is so much potential, and I am quietly confident this is by far Joe Shane's best draft class as GM. I don't want to be too confident and throw something like an A or an A plus, because there's only so much we can take from what we've seen from them at college and on tape and in workouts and combine and everything like that. We've got to see the product on the field and in camp and in pre-season. But I think let's look at the players we've selected as a whole. And like you said, Craig, as well, each one of these players we selected was projected to go higher, apart from obviously Jackson Dart. So it's almost like we're on to a winner already because we've selected players that fell to us quite nicely that should have probably gone a little bit higher than they did. So
this is absolutely paramount as to what Joe Shane was saying a couple of weeks ago, where he said the first draft that I had here, I had to fill roster spots. This time, I can just take the best player available, and that's exactly what he did.
He absolutely did. He's absolutely smashed it. Because, I mean, I know day 3, we were talking, like, to begin of day 3, we were saying in group chat about, I'd love if Scatterboo's there at 105. He was there at 105, we took him. And then going into round 5, I'd love if Bo's there. He was there and we took him. And it was almost like, it's just going too well for us. But it's just, I think he's between Shane, Dabes, and the whole front office, the whole scouting team, everybody, they've done a fantastic job with this year's draft. I'll give it a solid B+, based on just a potential alone and everything else we've spoken about. And I think let's get to camp, let's get to pre-season, and let's really see these guys on the field and what they can do and what they can bring to this team. Because I'll be very surprised if all 7 of them aren't on the 53 roster come cut day.
Scatterboo! It's A+ all day long, lads. A+ all day long. What are you thinking about? But talk about the not drafting for need, like you both mentioned. There's 2 picks that stand out to me that are perfect examples of that. Obviously, Abdul Carter, but he is just a phenomenal player. So, that's obvious. The Scatterboo pick. You could have gone for need at that pick, 4th round pick. You could have got a decent guard, a decent, another position. But you went for Scatterboo because he was quite clearly the best player on the board. And the Fedoni one as well. Like, you could have gone another position, but you went for sort of the best player on your board, who I think will make the team. But we'll get into more of that next week. Yeah, I just think, you know my feelings, lads. Great draft.
Absolutely. Great draft. And we'll delve into day 3 picks and the undrafted free agents on next week's show. Unfortunately, though, that is all we have time for this evening. We'll be back next Thursday as we take a close look at those day 3 picks and what we can expect to see from them in their rookie year. Looking forward to that one very, very much. Anything else to add before we go, guys?
Oh, just that, I've enjoyed this as well, getting into the draft picks. I'm looking forward to doing it next week as well. I just want to give a wee shout out as well to Bobby over at Giants Nation show. He's got detailed film breakdown of all 7 draft picks. I haven't had a chance to watch them all yet. I've managed to watch the black one today, but they're all between 40 minutes, 20 minutes. Very, very detailed, and definitely worth a good watch.
Yeah, absolutely. We love the work that Bobby does. Just one last thing. Obviously, Dan, you mentioned at the beginning of the show, sort of, a massive thank you to everybody that tuned in to anything that we did over that weekend. It's no secret when you look at the YouTube page that you can kind of look at how many views this page gets and we get. But if you look at the content that we put out across the week leading up to the draft and the weekend of the draft, we had the super draft with Bobby and Monty and Mayo and Shane, and that did really well. And then you have a look at the 2 live streams that we did on YouTube and on X. We had over 1,000 views across those 2 days across the draft. I don't think any of us really expected that, especially when, if you compare the draft coverage to last year where we were all in the same room and obviously we just couldn't get that going. The fact that we had that kind of engagement is insane, and it just makes it that next year we will do it all in the same room again, because I just feel like I missed that dynamic a little bit. Like, can you imagine if we were all there when that draft happened and it wasn't just that time delay and that little bit of TV delay? So obviously stick with us for the next year and look forward to that in April of 2026.
Amen to that. I'm looking forward to it already. Yeah, I think we'd have all been jumping up and down and screaming and shouting when the trade came in the first round. Either that would have been just sat there with jaws dropped, not knowing what to say. But yeah, like those two shows we did last week, and the draft show that you guys did as well, was, you know, the interaction and the how well they've gone down is unbelievable. And like you said, to have over 1,000 views across those three things alone, you know, we appreciate all the love as usual, and we got so much love across the whole draft week. So, you know, we really appreciate that, and we've got lots to look forward to for this for the rest of this pre-season, with obviously these selections that we made last weekend. So looking forward to next week, and looking forward to the rest of the off season and the pre-season as well. Check out all our socials for the latest news. Follow the links in the description to find where we are. Give this episode a big thumbs up, and feel free to share it amongst your friends as well if you want to. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to be notified on when we're going live. And James has decided to follow Syracuse as his college team, as he can't watch enough, so have no clue about players generally. Syracuse, good shout, good pick. I've yet to pick mine still. I kind of need to get on that a bit, but life has been in the way a little bit at the moment, so I think that's going to take a back seat for now. But I will get to it at some point.
Just quickly, Dan, sorry.
Just
by Syracuse, they've just got a transfer QB from Notre Dame, who, in my opinion, has the best nickname. Right, he's going over there. He'll be a starter, and he'll be a very good player, to be honest. His name's Steve Angeli, and his nickname's called Peanut Butter. Peanut butter, yeah, peanut butter.
Peanut butter and jelly. Love that. Bravo, that is quality. I love that. Well, Syracuse, peanut butter and jelly's on his way to you. There we go. James, let us know how peanut butter and jelly does in the 2025 season. Yeah, thanks everyone watching and listening, and everyone getting involved in the comments. We appreciate the love as always, as we do. My thanks as ever go to Kev and to Craig for joining me. We are signing off until next time. Let's go Giants.